Well, it's the third week of October, and it feels like the third week of August. It's supposed to get up near 80 degrees today here in eastern Massachusetts. We are along the Charles River near the town of Sherborne and Dover, Massachusetts. Straight line about 25 miles west of Boston, but we're about 45 river miles on the Charles River upstream from Boston. Got a lot of geese out here today competing for the airwaves here. So about 45 miles upstream from Boston, but only 25 miles straight line from Boston. And this stretch of river is still water paddling for many, many miles. There's a dam downstream here in Natick, and the river was probably still water before the dam was built, and it just added height to the area that was still water for many, many miles upstream from Natick. So it's a great place to paddle for miles and miles, even in a dry time of year, which it is. We haven't had much rain in the last couple months. I've talked to other people today. They said there's still plenty of water to go upstream from here, so that's the plan, is to paddle upstream. My turnaround point that I'm going to try to get to is called South End Pond. It's on a side stream. I think it's called Bogastaw Brook. I'll get the map out and check that name, and we'll look at the map. The Charles River Watershed Association has maps of this river to help you figure out what stretch is best for you. And I've got those maps printed off. We'll look at those. There's also a park along the way called Rocky Narrows that has hiking trails to some overlooks. So we're probably going to stop there on the way out this morning. We're heading southwest upstream on the Charles River. And when we get to South End Pond, if we can get there without too much low water, we'll probably turn around. But on the way up there, I'm going to stop at Rocky Narrows. We'll look at some of what's there. There's some bedrock ledges there with some interesting geology, and also some good overlooks of the Charles River. So this is a beautiful area. We've got peak fall colors, at least on some of the trees. Lots of wildlife. I just saw a beaver swimming across the river as I was talking. So we'll keep an eye out for any animals that come into view today as we paddle upstream on the Charles River for about a distance of 4 to 4.5 miles. And then if time, we'll go a little further, but if not, we'll start heading back. I've got till about 8 or 9 hours to paddle this today. I'm not in a hurry. So we'll see how much we can see in that time, and we'll do some hiking at Rocky Narrows along the way. Okay, well, I was up on that bridge introducing this trip. I'm going to look at the map here real quick. That bridge is on a road called Bridge Street and Farm Road. I think the name changes between the towns of Dover and Sherborne, Massachusetts. So Farm Road, Bridge Street launch at 44 miles upstream from Boston is where we're starting. And this launch is right here. Gently sloping, easy just to back down there or carry your boat down it. And parking for maybe 3 or 4 cars at the launch itself, but roadside parking nearby for 3 or 4 more. So it could get a little crowded since it's a very popular area for outdoor activities. I've already seen 2 other people here, but I had no trouble parking and unloading here. But on a weekend, you might need to start early. So this is the maps. I've taped them together, map number 3 and map number 4 map number 2 and map number 3 from the Charles River Watershed Association. So not much water on the gauges today, but it won't matter because this is basically pool level here. But only 8 CFS upstream from here and 28 downstream on the gauges. So 28 CFS on a river this size would be pretty scratchy if there were riffles, but I don't think there's going to be. And we'll keep an eye out for a rock. Sometimes when the water's low, obstacles aren't obvious because without any current, they're just right there. You can't always see them. But these maps are a great guide. They show you how many miles it is to your next point of interest. So we are right here at the Farm Road Bridge Street launch. And upstream, 1.1 miles, is Rocky Narrows. 2.6 miles is another bridge. And that launch is supposed to be pretty steep, so I picked this one instead. And then downstream from there, another mile or two, is the South End Pond and Bogastal Brick. That's where I'm thinking of turning around. But we'll be stopping at the Rocky Narrows Reservation. I've got the trail map of that printed off. And we'll be looking for interesting things along the way. Straightaway for the first half a mile brings you down towards Rocky Narrows Reservation. There's trails that kind of follow the river. I've seen several hikers on the west bank of this river. We're kind of heading south at this point. Beautiful swamp white oak overhanging the river here. There's been a lot of it along here. Not a lot of other trees, so our better colors will be up on the hillsides when we get off the river, I think. Many of the red maples along this river have turned and dropped early. They often do. And then the red maples on the hillsides will turn and drop a lot later. Plants in wetlands are under a little more stress. They often lose their leaves earlier. Black gum is the same way. So I haven't seen any black gum yet today, but we'll keep our eye out for it. And if it is still have its leaves, they'll be incredible to look at. It's a beautiful swamp white oak here. Bark kind of looks like a white oak, but it's a little bit more furrowed. And the leaves are a little more wavy on the edge than a standard white oak. It almost looks like that of a chestnut oak or a chinkapin oak. Well, about a mile upstream from the launch, we got an official entry point to Rocky Narrows Reservation, where this swamp white oak just hanging over the stream here. It goes up and then over and then all the way back down. Beautiful trees, pretty common along here so far. Seen a few that the beavers have cut down. That's probably not easy chewing an oak tree. They don't seem to mind it though. There's the branch from another tree right here. So we're going to get on the walking shoes and go check out some of the lookouts up here and maybe record some fall foliage. I think it's better on the hillsides right now than on the valley bottoms. But we do have some beautiful color right here. This is a high bush blueberry, and they get great color. And another beautiful plant in the fall. It's our winterberry holly. It's going to lose these leaves. It's probably already been below freezing here in the last few nights. The valleys have gotten down in the upper 20s lately. The hilltops haven't. So these leaves will be dropping, but the berries will stick around till January, and they're just amazing against the empty branches. Almost as pretty as an American holly with the foliage that doesn't fall. So would expect to find more winterberry holly on this hike and paddle today. It's pretty common in the wetter soils. Right there. So I got the boat pulled up enough that it won't blow away on me while I'm hiking for the next hour or so. Wind is supposed to kick up today. It's supposed to get pretty warm. It already is pretty warm. So I'm dressed for summer, shorts and a t-shirt. But I do have the cold weather paddling gear just in case. You just never know what could cause you to need to insulate yourself. Here's our trail map. And the canoe landing is right here. We're going to take this trail here, which is unblazed. If it's black, it means it doesn't have blazing. And then take the red trail just a short distance to the blue trail, and it has two different overlooks, King Philip's overlook and Rocky Narrows overlook. And then we'll probably just keep going and loop around back to the red trail. I'd like to spend about an hour here out of the canoe. That'll put us to right about noontime. That'll still give me 4 to 5 hours to paddle up to South End Pond and then turn around and come back. The trustees of Reservations owns about 300 acres back here in the Rocky Narrows Preserve. And as you can see, it's pristine. And about a 15-minute walk from that canoe launch, we come to King Philip's Overlook. The first advertised overlook on the Blue Trail, most of the trees had blocked the view, so I didn't record it. This one appears to be open, so let's see what we can see. The elevation around here isn't very high, so none of these hills are more than 200 or 300 feet higher than the surrounding land. But it's beautiful country. This park has been a park for a while and the trees are mature. Some of the color we're getting on the hilltop here is scarlet oak, which lives up to its name this time of year. We'll absorb the view here. Between the pines down here is the Charles River itself. This is going to be where we're heading after we get back in the canoe. Right there. And again, this is land with not a lot of large hills, but rolling country with some knobs. So it looks pretty level, but it's not as level as it looks. There's plenty of knobs that stick up in this area, including right into Boston, Bunker Hill, and a few other hills right in Boston itself. And the Blue Hills are quite a bit higher than that, up to 600 feet. I did some recording there a few years ago, 3 years ago, for my Barking Up the Right Tree channel. That's a beautiful park with a lot of overlooks. You can actually see the ocean, or at least Boston Harbor and Massachusetts Bay. Let's see what's growing up here. We got some bare oak, which is getting some pretty colors. Bare oak is more of a shrub. It grows in open areas with lots of sun. So it gets these smaller leaves. And an oak that can get beautiful colors is our white oak. Not the swamp white oak, but the standard white oak. This one here has got a beautiful color. It doesn't always get that, but it can. Swamp white oak usually doesn't get a lot of color, it just kind of turns brown. Same can be said with these black oaks that are growing right here. And usually the northern red oak as well. And while we're on the subject of oaks, we got plenty of chestnut oak growing back here. That's no surprise on a hillside. Dry soils. Right there with the lobes look like waves. on the ocean, and then more of this white oak behind it. And right here is an eastern red cedar. They often like full sun, so this is a great place for it. This one's covered in cones. Yes, they look like blueberries. They don't look like a cone at all. But botanically speaking, this is considered a cone because it does have scales that overlap each other so closely it appears to be a berry. They don't all get covered in cones every year, but when they do, it's usually by the thousands. You can see this one right here. Thousands and thousands. The cedar waxwings and other birds feast on them all winter long. There we are right there. And right there. And the rocks that form this rocky narrows is mostly what's called diorite, which is an intrusive rock. It's hard to see the true colors of it here. It's been weathered. I'm not that familiar with that type of rock, but this block of diorite was lifted up higher than the surrounding rocks. There's some faults on either side of this hill that brought this chunk of diorite up higher than the surrounding land, and that's why this hill is here when the rest of this valley is sand plains. So I won't get too much into geology here unless I find more to look at. But what we're standing on right here is diorite. On either side it's called rhyolite. The rocks on either side of this hill, and that erodes a little quicker than the diorite itself. It's a little more less resistant to the forces of nature. So that's why this block of rock that forms this overlook is still here. And there's faults on either side of it that basically brought this chunk of rock up a little higher than the surrounding ones. We're going to keep walking here. Didn't want to spend a lot of time hiking today. I wanted to see the overlooks. Fall colors, I wasn't sure what to expect, but this is mostly hemlock and white pine back here with some oak, so we're not going to get all the colors I was hoping for right now. We'll see what comes along. Either way, this is a great day to be outdoors. We've got great Indian summer weather here, and more colors may come along as we hike today. I just don't know what to expect. This is a part of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I have never visited before. Boy, I think I've mentioned this in other fall videos. Hickories are underrated for color. They're not one you think of when you think of fall colors. But they get incredible gold colors. This one has 5 leaflets, but they're quite large. I believe it's a shagbark hickory that hasn't shagged up yet. The bark is still just furrowed, but not shaggy. So I'm thinking that's what it is, but I don't have enough other things here to look at like nuts. But beautiful nonetheless. And putting on a great show here. Alright, well, we're back on the water, and just a couple tenths of a mile upstream from the official launch there at Rocky Narrows Reservation. You can see where the name comes from. Most of this valley is sands, glacial outwash, but right here you've got a narrow slot in the bedrock, and then the valley gets wide again on either side. Right back here it's nice and wide. And right on the other side of this rocky narrows passageway, it broadens out again. Yeah, and here you can really see how broad this valley is, probably a half-mile wide. On my left, we're looking upstream right now, is all buttonbush swamps. I've recorded buttonbush on the Pawcatuck River in the past on these outings when it was still green with its flowers and fruits. But it looks like it's a little ball about the size of the fruit of a sycamore or a sweet gum tree, about an inch around. It's covered in them usually, thousands of them, or hundreds at least. So, yes, beautiful day. We've got just a few wispy clouds up there, but it's mild. I think we're going to have an easier paddle on the way back. It's not that windy right now, but the wind will be pushing us back when we turn around, so that'll make it even easier to get back to where we started. Well, we just passed under the railroad bridge that we could see from King Philip's Overlook, and then shortly after that was Highway 27. And now we're in a broad area. Again, this is all shown on the glacial geology maps, or the surface geology maps, as glacial sands. And we're about a half to 3/4 mile from Bogastow Brook, which comes in river right as we're paddling upstream on the Charles here. And we're gonna, if we have enough time, we'll sneak on up that to South End Pond, which is a short distance up that brook, about a 1/4 mile. That's if there's enough water. If it's too low, we'll have to just turn around at the entrance to that brook. We'll see what we can find, but we're almost at our turnaround point on what's turned out to be a very nice Indian summer afternoon. And we've come about a mile above that Route 27 bridge, and there's a fork in the river here, and it's obvious. And I'm going to record this tree as well for a landmark. So you have a tree right in the middle of the river and obvious channels on either side. The one to the right should be our Bogastow Brook, according to my calculations. Cell phone service is real good here, so I can track my location on Google Maps, you know, with the satellite view on Google Maps. So I'm pretty confident. To the right hand should be our Bogastow Brook, and to the left would be continuing upstream on the Charles. Well, Bogastow Brook is beautiful and narrow, as I just showed in those last couple of clips there. Narrow enough the beavers can do what they do, and they have at the entrance to South End Pond here. I could easily get out here and lift over this, but I don't know what the footing is going to be like. There's rocks right here, and I don't know what I'm going to step on, and the water's cold in October, even though it's a very mild day, so I'm going to opt not to go any further. But let's take a look at South End Pond. I'm going to scoot to the other end of the boat here and get an even better look at it. And then we'll duck into a little cove out of the wind here and eat some lunch and start heading back. But what a beautiful paddle, about 4 to 4.5 miles back here. Should make pretty good time on the way back. It's mostly going to be a tailwind or a crosswind. So stand by, we'll get a better look at this pond here. Well, even from the front of the boat, we can't see the whole pond from here. It's looks like it's a good 1/4 to a 1/2 mile across. This is all glacial sands in this valley where there's not the bedrock ledges that we saw. It's all sand. So the fishing map of this pond shows a depression about 8 to 10 feet deep. And the beavers don't make dams that high, obviously, so it looks to be a kettle pond or a kettle lake with an outlet, a brook that comes in and out of it. That's what it appears to be to me. So what a beautiful place. And there is a launch at the other end of the pond you can get to from another road. But this dam is here, and if you brought something to break it free with, they'd probably build it back again. So come prepared to get over this dam if you do want to continue on to the Charles River from the launch on Bogostah or on South End Pond, or if you do want to get to the pond itself. I don't like the idea of trying to walk through these sticks because you don't know what's underneath them, and it may be quite deep. So I would probably opt to just end the trip right here. But I'm sure a good flood would push this away. Whether they'd rebuild it right away, I don't know. These don't look like fresh sticks here, but they may just be reusing old sticks, the beavers. I don't know. They're not freshly cut, though. They're from a few years ago. But what a beautiful place and what a beautiful day. We're going to turn around. I should be able to get more videos on the way back. I did what I could coming out, but I did have a headwind. But with the tailwind, I can just drift along and really record the turtles and birds that I was seeing on the way out here. Alrighty, well, that anticipated west-south wind is pushing me along right now. I'm not even having to paddle for at least this straightaway. And we are drifting back towards the railroad bridge that you could see from King Philip's Overlook. That overlook is behind the bridge up in those pine trees. We'll see if we can get a better glimpse of it as we drift on by. Well, what a pretty day to be out here. And these old rusty bridges they got character, you know. Wrinkles in your face and rust on your arches or on your supports just shows that you've lived your life well. So I'm not sure if this gets any use. I haven't heard or seen any trains on it today. It definitely hasn't been repurposed for a bike trail because there's no guardrails. So I'm not sure the answer to that. But what a beautiful day, and what a great stretch of river. We'll do a couple more clips on the way down. We're about halfway back now. Still a few turtles out here. The birds I can't seem to catch in time. But any time of year that this isn't flooded or frozen, this would be paddleable. Water's very low right now, and I haven't hit bottom except going into Bogostah Pond, or up the Bogostah Brook. There was one old beaver dam that you could drift on through, but you kind of drug over it, but it was passable. And then right in that rocky narrows itself, the paddle hit bottom, but I never did. It was maybe a foot deep. So there's a bedrock ledge right there. The rest of this is deep. I mean, you can't see the bottom. It's probably, you know, over your head most of the time. And just vast meadows of different plants, including a lot of that button bush. So what a great stretch of river. No houses that you can see. There's a few estates you can kind of see, but not really. And you know, being this close to a major city, this is quite a blessing and a great place to spend your time. Right here. Hey, buddy. Seen this bird off and on since we left South End Pond. I wouldn't expect them to be aggressive with me this time of year. It's well past nesting season, unless he's still got some youngins, but they usually are on their own by now. He keeps diving in the water though, and it doesn't quite look like an osprey. I'm not sure what it is. It's pretty much all white on the bottom with a few black stripes, almost like some black feathers mixed in with the white ones. So I'll have to look that up and see what I can figure out. But I don't know if it's the same bird that's been following me or if there's a lot of them along here. But all I saw on the way up was great blue herons and mallards. So this is something new on the way back. Different views too. I never saw that water tower coming up the river. It appears to be like a parking lot up here. I know there's several different preserves along here. So this looks like a preserve parking lot or something right up here. Right there. And we'll take one last look at the Rocky Narrows on our way back. And yes, it pinches down to a very, very narrow spot here. Yes, this is very narrow and as shallow as it gets on this stretch of river. Maybe 1.5 feet deep. You could probably walk through it. Looks like people might do that because of the trails that lead down on either side. Looks like it's rock bottom. Literally rock bottom, you know. This bedrock goes right underneath here. So this would have been like a natural dam, and it looks like the beavers have tried to make a dam here, or a bunch of beaver chewed sticks have gotten stuck here. But the fact that they're all beaver chewed sticks makes me think that this was intentional. I think they'd be difficult to keep the dam in place very long in a river this big, or at least with this big of a watershed. You can see that beaver dam there though. It definitely looks like they've tried to build it here, probably with limited success, but they're industrious. They want to keep trying. They don't give up. So yes, so as soon as this narrows down, it pinches right back open again, and we're right back into a wider floodplain. So I wanted to record this on the way back too. Well, it took about 2 hours to paddle back down the Charles River from South End Pond, down Bogastaw Brook, and downstream on the Charles here, which again is at pool level, so there really isn't much current. I am getting a tailwind, at least on some of these straightaways, so that's helpful. I would say 2 hours paddling time without headwinds or tailwinds, or a lot of water coming at you. So if you paddled what I did this morning upstream when the water was up, you would have more current, but I don't think it would ever be dangerous. This is pretty level right here, unless it was full of ice or logs from extremely heavy rain. So the bridge where we started, Bridge Street on one side and Farm Road on the other, and the boat launch underneath it is coming into view. So I would say 4 hours paddling time to South End Pond and back at the water levels I experienced today. I was going 6.5 hours because I spent time making videos and hiking up to King Philip's Overlook. But you could do this in an afternoon under normal conditions. So what a great day. Days like this get harder and harder to find as October comes to an end and November starts. So we'll probably put the canoe away pretty soon and get those hiking boots laced back up and do some more exploring before it gets too cold, too snowy, too icy to get up on the mountains. But the way the winters have been lately, that hasn't really been happening for too many days of the winter. So got some hikes planned between now and Thanksgiving. Probably get up on the New England Trail again, try some parts of that. I've got some areas in southern New York State, south of Albany, I'm looking at visiting. So stay tuned, and I will record what I can depending on the days I have available and the weather that I get those days.